Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. Hey, Thriving Farmers. Michael Kilpatrick here with yet another episode of the Thriving Farmer Podcast. Today, my guest is Olivia Schoentrup, a sixth-generation farmer from Indiana. Olivia and her husband, Paul, raised beef, pork, and chicken on their farm before deciding to sell it all and RV full-time with a mission to share their stories of small farms and homesteads across America. Olivia, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks, Michael. I'm really excited to be on. This is so exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So give us a little bit of your background. You guys were doing different regenerative meats, but then you're also a sixth-generation farmer. Mm-hmm. So kind of give us a little bit of background of kind of how that all came to be.
Yeah, so I grew up in the middle of a cornfield in Indiana. Dad, grandpa's before, all farms the same land. So it's like a 300 acres total that the family's farming together. And it's mostly corn and soybean. When I was in college, so I was a 10-year 4-H'er and an FFA'er and showed cattle throughout all of that. Absolutely loved it. Went to Purdue and for animal sciences. And then when I was in college, my dad started doing farm to table with his beef. And that's also about the time that Paul and I started dating. And I said, farming's a non-negotiable. So he spent a summer at my family farm with us doing farm to table type operations. They were trying to do mostly organic. They weren't quite into like rotational pastures just yet. It was more standard graze. But local, focused on local food and stuff like that. So then when I graduated Purdue, I started working at a bank. Paul became a firefighter paramedic, and we bought our farm. And then we started diving into the regenerative model, rotational grazing. So we got cows and chickens, and we got pigs later. Everything, on the managed intensive grazing rotational method that we all know about. We did that for 6 years. Things were awesome. There were some hard points. We had a kid right in the middle of COVID. So that was a little difficult. I was still working at the bank at that time, but like a lot of farmers, COVID brought me home full time. So I was able to be the on-farm farmer. Paul's schedule worked out great because he was gone for 24 hours, but he was home for 48. So that was, it was a good balance. And then things just kind of kept going and kept piling. And Paul and I had talked about moving to the mountains, that we really like North Carolina. So we thought about, maybe we should move. And we only had a 5-acre farm. And like 2.5 to 3 acres of it was pasture, and no one around us. It was all corn and soybean. No one would sell to us. So we knew we were locked in, and we kind of had that thought already. And then we had our second child in the fall of 22, and things were just hard that summer. And we were like, I don't think that this is serving our personal goals anymore. Maybe we need to change. And Paul and I are the kind of people that once we make our mind up about something, like that's it. Like we don't spend a lot of time thinking about things. We're just like, well, that's a decision. Let's go do it. So one day we went to an RV show in Indianapolis, and just for something to do. We were just bored. It was winter. The kids needed out of the house. We were like, let's just go walk around. It'll be fun. And we walked out of there and said, we're going to sell the farm and move into a camper. I don't know what we're going to do after that, but that's what we're going to do.
Okay.
So,
gotcha.
and there was some gut checks before that. Like there was a point where I told Paul, there's something really big coming. I don't know what exactly it is, but I just want us to be prepared. I don't think anybody's going to die, but I just can feel that something big is coming in, and we're about to go through a major change. So I'm glad that we kind of kept into our intuition that way, and it allowed us to really just go for it. So we did a couple trial runs. We started doing farm tours. We kind of put the best of both worlds. We had our YouTube channel. We didn't want to leave farming per se, but we wanted to go travel. So we just kind of put it all together and said, let's go travel the country and visit small farms and share their story through our YouTube channel. So we did a couple trial runs. And then in December, Paul was like, I'm done at the firehouse. I've seen enough. I've had enough. let's just go. I want to travel. I want to spend time with our kids. Let's just go. So
Yeah.
we hit the road, and we've been there ever since. It's been 6 months now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the challenge with that size of farm we're doing animals is you just don't have a big enough location area to scale up enough to bring in the team, so it doesn't become super stressful.
Right.
Because you've got to be able to have either it's micro farm where it's you and a couple people maybe, but with animals you really can't do that. You just can't get the numbers up.
Yeah.
So that's that massive challenge there. So yeah, and I like to refer to it as kind of like the farming mafia, that are so set in their ways, and they won't sell you land, but neither will they let you get the leases on land so that any regenerative farm can grow.
Yeah.
We experienced that out here, and and then you have them, because if you do price something away, then you anger everyone in the community, and now no one will do any field work for you, which we also experienced. So it's a tough road to kind of scaling up and trying to get that land. Unless, again, if you have come with family land, that's wonderful, but so many first generation farmers don't. Or in your case, it sounds like you're a sixth generation farmer, but they weren't willing to make some of the changes that you wanted to see.
They weren't, I won't say they weren't willing, they just weren't able. I mean, commercial farming is where it's at. It's hard. It makes
Yeah.
almost no money, and they couldn't afford to sell me land. Like,
Yeah.
it would hurt them. And I don't want to do it to my
Yeah.
family. I love my family. It's my dad and two of my uncles, and I don't want to hurt
Correct.
anybody. And also trying to be even closer to that side of the family so that we could like borrow their equipment and things. We couldn't find any property available. We actually ended up going kind of in a roundabout way, finding that farm with a friend of a family through Paul's side of the family. So we ended up
Yeah.
in Paul's hometown, which is an hour from where I was raised.
Correct. Yeah.
So, it's just, yeah, it's just hard.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah.
What were your markets for the farm? Where were you selling your product?
We went to one farmer's market. We bounced around a little bit. We went to the one that was
Yeah.
in the town that our address was located. That town, the way that the money is structured, it's a factory town, and so people just don't have the money or the capabilities to buy the product that we were selling it at. So
Correct.
we went
Yeah.
to a town over. It's a little higher income. And that farmer's market was amazing. They actually redid their whole area just for the farmer's market. And it was great. So we finished out there being there for 3 years straight. And we love the vendors too. When I was pregnant, all of the vendors helped me, unload when Paul was on duty, and it was great.
Yeah.
We absolutely loved doing that. We also sold off the farm too. So we had quite a few farmers or customers coming to the farm, and then we did deliveries once a week as well. But I'll tell you, doing deliveries, that was more stressful than
Yeah.
it should have been. By the end of it, we just stopped doing deliveries because with two small kids and a fire schedule that's not Monday through Friday, I can't just take two kids on the road for 2 hours,
Correct.
So
Yeah. And
we
Paul,
stopped doing that.
Yeah, and Paul couldn't, have a set Thursday schedule because it's the 24/48.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's really tough. Yeah, I mean that schedule can be a blessing, but also a curse depending on what you're trying to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, so now you're on the road. You're in Connecticut. Talk to us a little bit about kind of like what farms you visited so far.
Yeah, we have seen an array of farms, and we did that specifically on purpose. We believe that all farmers deserve and have a seat at the table. So I'll call some farms and like, I don't think I'm as big as you usually do. I'm like, oh no. Just because you see some videos of Joe, the farmer in Michigan, who has this year now he's got 100,000 broilers on pasture. He's great. But we also go to,
Yes.
the herbalist who's got an acre and a half. We've been to the urban city gardeners where they just have like a small city plot and a small garden that they've been working on, and everybody in between, and of course, when we were in the areas, we had to go see Will Harris and we had to go see Joel Salatin, and we just released the Jordan Green video. So you can't pass up seeing those amazing farms. But
Correct.
our goal and our mission when we set out was to tell the story of the people that nobody knows about, because those are the people that are really feeding their community. So
Yeah.
we've seen a lot of amazing farmers. I think one of my favorite ones was in Florida. His name's Jesse. It's
Okay.
titled like the oldest regenerative farmer or something like that. He's in his 80s, and that man is amazing. And I love telling this story that he said, "I always say, don't move your cows until you can count your spider webs." And I was like, "What? What do you mean?"
Okay.
And he goes, "Well, you have to come out at a very particular time in the morning when the dew hits just right and the sunshine is like just coming up. And if you can count your spider webs in your pasture,
Yeah.
then it's time to move the cows in." And I was like, that is an amazing and beautifully poetic way to talk
Yeah.
about rotational grazing. Like, that is so cool.
Yeah.
And he started farming the way he was because he couldn't afford all of the expenses that he was paying on his cattle. He still sells he sells some to local people like Holes and Halves, but most of his
Yeah.
calves just go to the sale barn.
So he's moving slowly. Okay, so but why is that? Why does he want to wait till the is that because the dew's starting to come off the ground or?
No, because it's tall enough.
Ah.
Yeah, he's just saying
Okay.
make sure there's enough regrowth there before
Oh, okay. So
before
on
you
the
move
land,
it. Yeah.
gotcha. So the land you're moving them to, make sure that okay, you can see the spider. Gotcha. Okay, that totally makes sense. Yes. Okay, I got
Yeah.
that now. Yeah. Cool. So you did mention earlier like a farm in Michigan. Is there a farm in Michigan with 100,000 broilers on pasture?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we
And
toured him, he did. So we toured him last fall, and he had
yeah.
finished 35,000 broilers on pasture. And if I'm
Okay.
not mistaken, from following his socials, he's got 100,000 on pasture this year.
Okay. So let's talk through a little bit of that farm because
Sure.
that's obviously a bigger farm.
Huge.
And what's his market for those?
He sells mostly online, and he does like drop shipment.
Okay. So online drop ship, and that is a lot of birds. And so I'm assuming he
Yeah.
has the big like hoop houses that are moved every day.
Yeah, it's I think of the Prairie Schooner
Mm-hmm.
brand model. It's a different brand model, and they were able to custom build theirs. He does layers too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing. He's got layers on pasture that way as well. And in the video, we got to see him moving them, which was really cool. But yeah, it's like a big it's probably, I don't want to say numbers because I'll
Yeah.
butcher it. But it's a really big area, and he just moves it forward every day. And he's got a livestock guardian dog out there with him,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah,
So he must have relatively large fields that are relatively flat.
they're not that flat though.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I mean,
Just
they're not like,
yeah.
yeah, it's soft rolling hills. I mean, it's not steep,
Yeah.
but it's not like northern Indiana flat
Gotcha.
or Missouri flat.
Okay. Okay. So then, and I'm assuming all the feed is that certified organic? Is it non-GMO or?
Yeah, he does. And I don't want to speak all to the
Yeah.
specifics because I don't know all of it for sure, but I know he does like an organic feed. I think he has a soy free, and I'm sure it's non-GMO.
Yeah.
I don't know where he gets it from.
Yeah.
So I think we might talk about that in the video. I just can't remember.
Yeah. Folks just gotta go to the YouTube channel and check it out. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
or his. He
yes.
has a YouTube channel too. It's Joe's Farm.
Joe's Farm. Okay. Yeah. That's really interesting. I'll have to check that out. Because
Yeah.
that is sizable. I mean, and the thing about broilers on pasture is once you're in those systems, scaling is relatively easy.
Right.
Because you can automate feed, you can automate water. You're out there with the tractor anyway, moving them forward. It's a 2-man operation anyway. So now you're just moving, 6 or 8 instead of 1. So it really scales easily. Obviously, being that far north, you probably have some fall and spring challenges, but you can drop your sides too, which is nice too. So you can almost brood part of like a week or two in the field and then start moving them more regularly when they're smaller.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating. I'll have to do some
Yeah.
more research on that.
Yeah, and I can give you all kinds of fun farms. We've said, I know in your questionnaire you had like a box, and I was like, there's just too many to
Yeah.
too many to put in here.
Yeah.
Are you ready to transform your strawberry growing skills? We want to share our 16 years of experience with growing and profiting from strawberries with you in our free 3-day strawberry workshop. Learn proven techniques for boosting yield and flavor, tips for managing your harvest, and even developing your own U-Pick operation. This workshop is perfect for farmers, homesteaders, and gardeners looking to extend your strawberry growing season and make some money in return. The 3-day online workshop is offered weekly, but register now as it's only available for a few more weeks. Sign up at strawberrysuccess.com. That is strawberrysuccess.com.
So that's obviously, we talked about some big ones. We talked about the guy in Florida. Let's talk about one that you feel like is doing really important work, or like, doing some really like a breakthrough or something that you'd like to see.
Oh my gosh. Have you ever seen an automatic fence mover?
No.
Holy cannoli. That is the coolest thing. My mind was blown.
Okay.
So Running Tea Farm, they're in Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah, they're in Virginia. And their story is really cool. It's their farm has been in the family since before the Declaration of Independence was signed.
Wow.
Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can trace it all the way back, and it's the same ground. So their history is really cool, but they still are figuring out how to be on the farm full time versus working off the farm. And he found these automatic fence movers. So he does these long strips down his pasture, and then he moves them 4 times a day. So he breaks it into, I think it ends up being like 6 paddocks, because he moves them himself in the morning. And then he's got a fence mover here, and it's on a timer, and it beeps. And when it beeps, it moves it up, and the boss cow yells, and everybody runs to the other side. And then a few hours later, the next one goes up. And he only has to move the waters once a day, and it's at the beginning part. And so all the fences stay up once they're up, and the cows can go back, get a drink of water, and then go graze again.
So what I'm assuming then is it's just moving one end of the fence up, right? And they just go to...
It's in the middle.
Oh, it's in the middle. So it's a special post.
Yeah.
Is it a special post that just has like a linear actuator on it?
Yeah, it's on like a T-post, and it's got like a key ring that you put the poly wire in, and it is on a string, and then it winds it up and it pulls it up, and then the poly wire comes up with it. So they just go right underneath. And I mean, it's not too terribly tall. I mean, it's probably 6 foot in the air.
Yeah.
So the bigger cows have to go closer to it, but the smaller cows can be out.
Interesting, because the nice, and you said fence mover, I was thinking like the old wheel irrigation reels that would wheel across the field, but this obviously is way more ingenious.
And you can program it from your phone.
Oh, that's cool.
Is the even cooler part. Like he can just say, okay, this time, move it at this time.
Yeah.
And they just go. But what was so cool to me is because it beeps. I mean, that boss cow, she's like, hey guys, hey, it's beeping. And they ran to the other side. Yeah. I mean, it was so cool to see.
And how many cows was he running?
Oh my gosh. That's a good question. It was tight. It was tight.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he said 100,000 pounds per acre.
Okay. Is what they were trying to do there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously the larger you go, it's typically the more often you're moving them. I know some places are like even 6 or 8 times a day because they're just massive herds, and you have that much. As you said, I think it's 100,000 pounds an acre, and so you're really just trying to think. Average cow is 1,500 pounds, depending on the size of the cow, 1,200 to 1,500 pounds. So then you have to kind of figure out what that is. But that's really cool. I mean, obviously, it just allows you to kind of section it out better. I mean, you technically could actually do it so you don't have to visit the cows every couple days if you, as long as your water was in the right direction and all of that.
I think the only limitation on those, now I'm sure there's other brands out there, so I don't know all of the marketing, but he said his only limitation is that he could only program them up to, I think it was like 72 hours out.
Okay.
So if you were moving them once a day, you could do it for 3 days and not have to go see the cows. And you
Yeah.
can program it too. So like it beeps and goes up and then it beeps again and goes back down. He just prefers to keep it up.
Okay, so they would go through and then you would actually close it behind them.
You
Gotcha.
could. Yeah, if you
Yeah,
wanted.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk to me. Okay, so we got that. Talk to me a little bit about kind of some of the smallest farms that you've visited.
Yeah, so the smaller farms are more on like the vegetable side of things. Um I'm trying to think. I'm looking at my book here. So one of the more popular videos that we set out was a vegetable gardener, and he's just in his backyard. He's in the suburbs and just in his backyard, but he uses deep cover for his garden. So he never tills. He's in North Georgia, so he's
Okay.
very clayey up there. Been overworked in tobacco for a while, and he knew that. Sorry, I'm gonna take a drink real quick. He knew that when he retired, he just wanted to garden, and it's mostly for himself, but he will sell the extra like at the farm stand or whatever. And they also do like jams and stuff. Um, and he just gets old, rotten, wasted away hay bales that are sitting in a field that nobody is going to feed their animals. He gets them for super cheap and lays the hay down on his garden beds, and that's all he does. And then it breaks down and he keeps adding more and more and more. And I thought that that was really cool. And we were usually, our tours are like an hour or so, and we were 20 minutes in, and I said, Cliff, it seems like it's just that simple. I don't know what else to talk about now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you're
Yeah.
just like, yeah, I just lay it down and then I plant, and then that's it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that was really cool to see. I enjoyed talking with him and just making things more simplistic than I think a lot of us do. Like, that's part of the reason why Paul and I were so burned out, because we had to do things to the extreme, and they had to be a certain way. And what we're learning through these tours is like, well, actually, there can be a simpler way to do it, and you don't have to do it the way you've always done it just because that's the way you've always done it,
Correct.
you know?
Yeah. So talk to
So
me about this, that farm. So basically, okay, his process was roll out these junk round bales, and then would he plant right through them, or let them just rot down, or?
both. So when he's
Okay.
ready to plant, he just pulls it apart a little bit. And I didn't ask him this specifically, but I imagine that you can do transplants or direct seeding. That if you open
Yeah.
it up and you put some compost or soil or however right there, just in that hole, you could direct seed or put your transplant in there. Um, and he doesn't roll it out because he also uses smaller garden beds. So instead of doing like 1,650-foot rows, he does like more squares, and they're like 6 foot long rows. And he said mentally it just makes him feel better, where he says, oh, I already finished that one, that's great, now I can go to this one, instead of looking down that long row and being like, oh my gosh, I'm dying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's a big reason for us why our green bean rows aren't 200 feet long. So
Uh-huh. Yeah.
because it's just a little overwhelming, like the crew. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
It also too depend on our scale. So if we had, we're doing like 30 or 40 acres of vegetables, then that length would be standard. But we're doing maybe 3 to 4 acres a year, so it's a lot smaller. So yeah.
Right.
So then you said he was selling like on farm, as well as, remind me about his sales outlets.
He's not really focused on sales, so he's
Okay.
retired. He does this because he thoroughly enjoys it. He actually worked in something about international trade with vegetables, so he's very aware of what happens when produce is imported into the country, and what goes on it and in it and the things. So he said he didn't want to be any part of that, and he wanted to grow his own. So he's retired anyway, and he'll sell his extras at, I think, at a local farmer's market, and then he might just give
Okay.
some to his neighbors. But most of it's for himself, and then they also, with the help of his daughter, they do like jams and jellies and things. So he was also a Marine before he went into his professional
Okay.
career, and his daughter came up with the name Jarhead Farm, like because it's a jar,
Yes.
and because he
Yeah.
was a Marine. So that's kind of cute name. But yeah, that's where he sells it.
Yeah. Okay. So then, jars, jams, and jellies. Does he just do some fruit there as well?
No, it's more like I guess I
Purchased
shouldn't have
in.
said jams and jellies. Yeah, I should have. It's more like salsas, or
Oh,
like he'll
okay.
take his cucumbers and do
Pickles.
pickles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and things like that.
Okay. Cool. That's really cool. Um,
Yeah.
all right. So then, did you visit any flower farms?
We haven't really gotten into any
Okay.
flower farms yet. No. That's on our list, and we're calling people. I will
Yeah.
say another really cool place that we went to was, if you haven't heard of it, the South Carolina Governor's Agricultural High School.
No.
So it's the only residential agricultural high school in the country.
Okay.
They take sophomores, juniors, and seniors. They live on campus, and they graduate in 2 to 3 of the 4 pillars of agriculture. They
Okay.
are still teaching like semi-conventional methods. They are state funded, so it's a public school, which is great. It's so they don't have to have the private school costs. But I just love the idea and the concept of what they're doing. That I mean, when I was there were kids, cutting trees down, and they were working on doing a prescribed
Hmm.
burn. And their farm manager works with, they do rotational grazing with their beef. Um, and then they also are very academic focused too. So they do still have to go to class every day
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
learn
Yeah.
English and, all of the fun core classes. But they're the only one in the country, and we were fortunate to be able to go see them. So we also got to see their ag day, and they
Hmm.
had like a cattle show, and I can't pass up a cattle show. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had to
Yeah.
go to
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, there's some good flower farmers. If you ever get back down to Virginia, you need to go down to my friend Jess has a farm down there, and I will think of the name of her
Okay,
farm in a second. But yeah, she would be an excellent interview just because of what
cool.
she's doing down there. So yes.
Sure.
All right. Well, so I guess the next question would be like, what do you feel like you've learned along the way?
Like I talked about earlier, definitely things don't have to be as extreme or as
Hmm.
set in the ways as they have been in the past. But also I think the biggest thing for us, and part of the reason why like we got a little burned out, is if you're forcing a company, any company, it doesn't have to be farming, but if you're forcing it to make money, then it's going to be miserable. And we got to the point where we had to make money. Like it was no longer fun because I love farming and I love animals. It was, if this doesn't make money this week, we can't pay our bills. Like we have to make it make money. And then it just became not fun anymore. So I also think that that goes into like the diversification cycle that I think we small farmers get into, where you have to diversify, diversify, diversify. And then I think that that is a hindrance when you're trying to learn things too, where, oh, I have to learn from this for my cattle and now this for my pigs. Versus if you can specialize, in my opinion, I think that just getting one thing and doing it really, really, really well. Like if we would have just, we didn't have to put up fence, we didn't have to put in water. If we would have just kept our broiler chickens and scaled that up on our small 5 acres, we would have been in a much different position. But because we wanted beef and pork and chicken and, tried to do all the things, it just got to be too much. So that's definitely something that we are taking with us going forward.
Yeah. No, I think you're right on that too. And the thing is, like a lot of farms, they start one thing, and so now you have like, let's say you're doing 100 chickens, and you've got customers for 100 chickens, but finding those next customers for the next 100 chickens is always going to be a little harder. So you add in pigs because the first 100 the customers are going to buy something else, but now you've got this massive diversification. So you're doing eggs, and you're doing beef, and you're doing turkeys, and there's just and then there's all micro aspects of each one that you need to learn. So that's with our current farm right now. That's where I feel like have started to get into our sweet spot. Is we have about 20 different crops that we grow, and we
Wow.
let everyone else grow the other crops. And
Yeah.
so like our sweet potatoes and potatoes, we most of those are grown by somebody else, which allows us to focus on what we're good at. And but we're still able to bring in a fully diverse farm store for the customer. And that has really helped us scale quickly. And so,
Yeah.
And one aspect, that whole aspect of being a producer-only farmers market, I feel like hurts the small farmer because they are limited to literally producer-only, only what they can grow. So, and again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because I think it's very important for transparency, because you have a lot of people at farmers markets that will just go to the auction, pick up, 20 pallets of produce, bring it up and sell it for next to nothing just to cover their cost. And the person that's trying to grow their own food is struggling. But I think there needs to be a hybrid model, or there needs to be some sort of change, because again, going back to the previous model we had is just so much more challenging.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. When we were in Mississippi, we went to a farmer's market that had good reviews, and there was somebody there that was selling the Cuties oranges from Aldi.
Yes.
Like they had the
dear
Aldi
God.
sticker tag on them, and we were like, "Oh, guys, come on!"
I know. Don't try to hide it at least. Take your stickers off at least. I mean,
yeah,
yes,
that was rough.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, Olivia, I appreciate you guys coming on and sharing so much today. Thank you for sharing your story. Again, remind us where folks can find your socials, and if they want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so our main stuff is on YouTube, Breaking New Roots on YouTube. That's where all of our farm tours are. We are currently building our Instagram to show more of our behind the scenes stuff, not just behind the scenes on farm tours, but just our life in general and what we're doing. Fishing with the kids, things like that. So you can go to breaking_new_roots on Instagram and find us there. We do have a Facebook, but we just share our videos there. We're not too active on that. But if anybody has, a farm that you want us to visit, I will say right now, this is the 1st of June. We're in Connecticut. We're going to be making our way up through New England over the next couple months, and then we're going to go out west next year. So if anybody's got a farm that they want us to visit, or if they are a farm that they want us to visit, you can send us an email, breakingnewroots@gmail.com, and we will add you to the list. We've got a really good list going, so we're excited about that. And we've got a lot of farms to go see. We are so excited.
Cool. Well, yeah, keep up the good work, and looking forward to you guys heading out to the Midwest one day.
Yeah, we sure will. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate you having me on today.
All right.
So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.